Good evening and thank you for joining us. Thunder Bay's top police officers are expressing frustration with violent crime in the city. 2022 saw a record 15 homicides, which will likely make Thunder Bay the murder capital of Canada once again. But the acting police chief and the head of investigations say the violence extends far beyond those killings. Vasilios Bellos reports.
It was Thunder Bay's deadliest year in its history, with 15 homicides in 2022. And as Detective Inspector Jeremy Pearson explains, there was a common theme in many of them.
One of the primary factors in the homicides and the violence that we've seen this year is, in fact, the illicit drug trade, either as a direct contributor to the interaction that then leads to the homicide itself, or as a factor related to the parties involved.
Of the 15 homicide investigations, arrests and charges have been laid in 13, though the investigations remain ongoing. With a year as tragic as 2022 came with it a strain on police resources, considering what is required to investigate a homicide. The initial response, talking to witnesses in the area, and apprehending suspects are just a few of the aspects of a homicide investigation. These crimes, along with other serious altercations like assault, require what Acting Chief Dan Taddeo calls an all-hands-on-deck approach, something that he says is required but does cause issues.
Officers that we do use to support the investigation who normally wouldn't be involved, now they're not performing their primary functions. And we still have our other, what I'll refer to as daily police activities to tend to, whether it's traffic enforcement, neighbor disputes, or just general police assistance calls. Drawing on skilled investigators from other areas of the department, which then causes a backlog in their primary portfolios.
Taddeo stresses that the issue of serious crime in the city goes far beyond homicides. When comparing to other similar municipalities, Thunder Bay has considerably more cases of assault and robbery, which is often tied to the drug trade. As for the crime severity index, Thunder Bay is well above both the provincial and national averages. Taddeo believes much of the problem comes from how offenders are dealt with by the courts, believing the justice system needs to be reanalyzed.
It's my opinion that the broad brush approach of the judicial system, specifically bail, needs to be reexamined. The justice system needs to look at the issues affecting individual or specific communities like Thunder Bay. And I think the justice system needs to react to that and perhaps keep people incarcerated if they continue to sell drugs.
Assuming Thunder Bay has the most homicides per capita for 2022, that would make our city the murder capital of Canada 9 times in the past 13 years. Vasilios Bellos, TBT News.
A woman accused of killing her mother in June of 2020 pleaded guilty today at the Thunder Bay courthouse. 23-year-old Lorena Jacob was originally charged with second-degree murder following the incident at an apartment complex on Dawson Street. 47-year-old Lydia Rose Jacob died of stab wounds. According to the agreed statement of facts read in court today, the mother and daughter had been drinking for many hours when Lorena Jacob sent someone a message saying she stabbed her mother many times. Today she pleaded guilty to the lesser charge of manslaughter. A sentencing date hasn't yet been scheduled. The province's Special Investigations Unit is looking into a recent incident in the city. Around 4:20 Wednesday afternoon, a city police officer attempted to pull over a driver near Walsh and Franklin Streets, but the driver fled and then got into a crash on Mary Street. A man and woman took off on foot before being caught and arrested. The male suspect was taken to hospital where he was found to have suffered serious injuries. The SIU is asking any witnesses, including those with dash cam footage, to contact the lead investigator. A Dryden area man received his punishment this week after previously pleading guilty to second-degree murder in the deaths of 2 seniors nearly 3 years ago. 39-year-old Justin Desatel was handed an automatic life sentence at the Kenora courthouse yesterday. The murder charges stem from a violent rampage at the Arbor Jade Trailer Park just north of Dryden in March of 2020. 5 people were attacked and 78-year-old Mervyn Brownlee was found dead in his trailer. Another victim, 72-year-old Dorothy Dot Brown, then died in hospital 3 weeks later. Desatel pleaded guilty in August to 2 counts of second-degree murder and other charges, including aggravated assault. He won't be eligible for parole for 13 years. A high number of patients with respiratory viruses continue to show up in the ER at the Regional Health Sciences Centre, and hospital officials are preparing for a further increase in the coming weeks, based off of numbers in southern Ontario and a new Omicron subvariant that's now circulating in other parts of the country. Patients with respiratory viruses like COVID-19, RSV, and the flu continue to strain resources at the Regional Health Sciences Centre. And Chief of Staff Dr. Bradley Jacobson believes the situation will likely get worse before it gets better.
Looking at numbers in southern Ontario, probably within the next week or two, we'll get a little bit more of a bump.
And then there's the new highly transmissible Omicron subvariant that's circulating widely in the U.S. and has recently been detected in Western Canada.
We're certainly preparing for it and always expecting things that have happened elsewhere in Canada, North America, to be present at our doorstep as well. And with travel, mostly back in full swing, we expect that there will be some exposures and likely patients infected presenting to the regional.
As of Thursday, there were 26 COVID patients in hospital, with 3 in the ICU, and 64 staff members were out sick with COVID-related illnesses as well.
Anywhere over 40, it becomes a little more difficult to balance shift coverage and asking for overtime and making sure that we're not exhausting the staff that do remain healthy. So far, our teams have been doing a fantastic job, but the number we're at now is cause for some alarm, but we certainly have strategies in place.
Jacobson believes flu cases have plateaued, but still he encourages anyone who's mildly ill to exhaust all other options, like walk-in clinics or Health Connect Ontario, previously known as telehealth, before coming to the ER. A person from the Fort Frances area has died from injuries sustained in a December 16th collision on the Thunder Bay Expressway. OPP confirmed today that 21-year-old Jamie Dempsey-Rateau succumbed to their injuries in hospital. An online obituary says the Devlin resident passed away on Christmas Eve, and police were advised of the death this week. The multi-vehicle crash happened between John Street and Oliver Road. The investigation continues, but the OPP say charges aren't being considered at this time. Thunder Bay Fire Rescue responded to a scary incident at a Victoria Avenue home on Wednesday. A carbon monoxide leak sent 5 people to hospital. Fire crews got a report of someone feeling nauseous and fatigued and arrived to find 2 people unconscious. The 5 residents were treated in hospital and are now doing well after receiving oxygen therapy. The property owner has been fined $360 for failing to install a carbon monoxide alarm. Questions continue to grow over Ontario Premier Doug Ford's plan to develop protected areas north of Toronto. The Ontario Provincial Police have confirmed they're looking into complaints about some well-timed land purchases in the area. Siobhan Morris explains.
Investigators with the OPP's anti-rackets branch have been poking around since mid-December, seeing if there are grounds for a full investigation into government plans to develop the Greenbelt. At issue, developers with PC ties, snapping up what had been protected land before the change was announced.
It defies any reason that the people doing these transactions didn't know the land was going to be opened up. So it's up to the OPP to find out how they knew.
Environmental Defense's executive director met with provincial police a few weeks ago.
We've provided every support that we can, not just in terms of asking them to do it, but in pointing them in the right direction as much as possible as to where they might go.
Pothin insists he can't say much more.
The OPP asked us not to reveal details of those discussions.
Premier Doug Ford and Minister of Housing and Municipal Affairs Steve Clark have both denied tipping off developers. Today, a spokesperson for the Premier tells CTV News no one in the Premier's office or any member of the government has been contacted, and no documents have been requested by the OPP on this matter. The government position isn't sufficient for environmental defense.
If the minister is saying that it wasn't him, that's fine. We need to find out who it was, whether it's someone within his office or someone, a civil servant.
Because he can't believe developers didn't know what was coming.
That was CTV's Siobhan Morris with the story. Dozens of local high school students staged a climate strike this afternoon. After walking out of their classrooms, they converged on the office of MP Patty Hajdu to demand action on climate change.
Your daughters, your sons, your children, your grandchildren, your future leaders, your future preservers, but what are you leaving us with? When we get to be your age, what will we have to fight for? What are you doing with your money and your power that is so much more important than life and climate justice and the future of our world?
The student protesters were joined by supporters of all ages, each demanding to be heard by a generation of adults and political leaders they say are putting profits ahead of their future. The rally was organized by the youth-led group Fridays for Future Thunder Bay and a trio of grade 11 and 12 students from La Vérendrye. They say they were spurred to action after learning about climate change in school.
We would love to see just some change to protect some of nature because it's so precious and we need it to be here, and we're killing our earth, and we just need any sort of acknowledgement from Patty Hajdu that she's listening to us, anything.
I should be in school right now. I should be in my English class right now, but instead we're here because, I mean, we need to fight for our future. And what's the point of going to school, going to everything if we don't have a future in the end?
This is the only Earth that we have. There's no planet B. We have to take action now, or else we're not going to have a future to take action for.
Bunnies have no voice. There's no planet B.
Until we get to that point where we can vote and we can have that bigger voice, we are begging you to listen. We are begging you to make a change.
What do we want? Climate action! What do we want it? Now!
Hajdu wasn't at her local office today. The climate strike organizers aren't sure yet whether they'll stage other classroom walkouts, but say their fight is far from over. The municipality of Junia is planning to erect an open-air pavilion at the McGregor Rec Centre on Lakeshore Drive. It'll be used as a covered ice rink in the winter months and for other activities the rest of the year. Jessa Clement has the details.
The new facility will cost about $1.4 million. Junia officials have applied to the Northern Ontario Heritage Fund to cover $700,000 of that, with Junia covering the other half through federal gas tax revenues, municipal reserves, and donations. The municipality reviewed several designs for a roof over the existing skating rink at the McGregor Recreation Centre and decided on the wood truss option. Junia CAO Paul Greenwood says the structure should be completed later this year and stresses that it's not just a covered outdoor rink, but a structure that will provide year-round seasonal activities.
The pavilion will both complement and expand our programming already provided at both McGregor Rec Centre and at Wild Goose Park. The intent is for it to be a year-round, provide year-round seasonal activities for all ages, and certainly there's opportunities for artisan and farmers markets, a venue for music, and certainly a variety of community activities and sporting activities.
The pavilion will be the second covered rink in the Thunder Bay area, following the completion of a similar project in Conmee in 2021. But Greenwood says the one in Junia will look a little different.
From what I know, from a design perspective, the interior height will be significantly taller inside, giving a more open feel, and our rinks are intended to be removed in the summertime.
Greenwood says he's excited for the project to get started and for the community to start using the facility. Jessa Clement, TBT News.
Well, Fiona, we mentioned yesterday that real winter would arrive here in northwest